Well, hello and welcome to the Unofficial Unreal Engine podcast, where we talk about all things Unreal Engine and also getting to Bora Bora. We're your hosts. My name is Alex, and today, guest host, guest, whatever we want to call him, we have Cosmo Scharf. Hello, Cosmo. Yay.
Hey, welcome. This is awesome.
Yeah, really fantastic. It's been really wonderful chatting with you over the past few weeks, months, however long it's been now, about Apple Vision Pro. We got to see each other in person at NYVR. And after today's WWDC keynote, which is still kind of a new thing to me, I'm still so new to this Apple ecosystem, I thought it would be great to have a little breakdown with you of what we saw, what it means for developers, Unreal Engine, and others, and to make this our very first unofficial Unreal Engine podcast that takes place in FaceTime, Persona, like whatever.
Hey, I call it space time.
FaceTime. Yes, that's right. Yes, FaceTime.
Shorten it for you.
Exactly. So I don't have my usual podcast notes in front of me, but let me see if I can remember some of how we typically introduce a guest. I do remember we start with some word association. And I'm supposed to do the Jacob thing, which is to say, please rate, like, subscribe, all that stuff at uepodcast.com and our YouTube channel. But yes, to start, Cosmo, I'm going to start off and say a word, and you just tell me the first thing that comes to mind, no wrong answers, and I'm only going to remember a few of these. But let's go. Home.
Pod.
Amazing. Best answer so far. Work.
Fun.
Vacation.
Beach.
Apples.
Pro.
Unreal Engine.
Hard.
Hard. Great. How do you take your coffee?
Black. No, I don't actually drink it black with. Usually cappuccino.
Yeah. What's your favorite time of day?
Morning.
Mornings. Cool. If you said night, I was actually going to change our environment to go. It's just to be like, we can do it here.
That's in VisionOS 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, we can. I think we can make it go night in real time.
Like automatically. Then
Right. Oh, yeah. To have it be like
responding to.
Yeah. I've never actually tried to do it during a FaceTime call. There we go. Does that make it go dark for you?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, now you're even more ghostly.
Even more ghostly.
Yeah, I think the daytime it makes you look a little better.
Yeah.
It's a little creepy at night, I will say.
It is a little creepier at night. I agree. It's funny to talk also about how you turn things like that, which could be seen as bugs in context, into features. If we were making an app where there was some kind of spooky Halloween thing going on, that would definitely be a feature. And then I think my last question is, what's a time you remember laughing really, really hard?
Just at the keynote, the WWDC keynote, we were just watching the moment where Craig Federighi was turned into a parkour master.
Yeah.
That was amazing. They have just such an incredible, love for humor in their keynotes. Like, especially, with Craig Federighi, they always do some wacky intro. Like, he came in and he took off his clothing in the beginning. Yeah, I love that. That was hilarious.
Yeah. And the whole Halo jump at the beginning out of the plane. And my goodness, ridiculous. Okay, cool. Well, I think that's how we usually open things. Sorry, Jacob, if I got a few wrong. But welcome, Cosmo. Really good to have you. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and why you would do something like watch WWDC?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Cosmo. Oh, Siri just got triggered. Go away. I've been a technologist, futurist, designer for pretty much my whole life. I've been obsessed with VR ever since I read the book Ready Player One. And that was back in, I want to say, the winter of 2014.
Sure.
And was very inspired by that and just saw a whole future for technology and for myself after reading that book, and ended up creating a meetup called VRLA that became one of the world's largest expos for VR. And along the way, also created an app called Mindshow that was a 3D animation platform using virtual reality. And so I've been doing VR and experimenting with immersive technology for quite a while at this point. And the Vision Pro is, just the latest kind of step in that journey. And here we are using our spatial personas and recording a podcast. And it's good to do this because I've been hoping and meaning to do something like this for a while. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, and I should note for our listeners that one feature that still isn't in VisionOS, even the 2.0 beta, is to record audio directly from the conversation. So the audio that you're hearing now in the podcast is done a little bit in a hacky way. Cosmo is using, like, I think, Audacity, and I'm using my phone. And hopefully what you're hearing has been beautifully produced by Alan, and it sounds great.
Yeah, that's, been a bit of a frustration in terms of, the spatial persona technology. Like, it's really awesome to be able to communicate with people this way, but the lack of the ability to easily record conversations as you can say in Zoom
Mhm.
is a big missing feature. I was hoping that perhaps they would update that with VisionOS 2. It doesn't seem like that's the case, although I will say I've yet to dive super deeply into all the nitty-gritty details of what they have, updated there, but I've been really inspired recently with the spatial persona way of communicating, and that's how we're talking right now. In
Okay.
case you're just listening to this, so
We can see each other.
we can see each other in 3D with our photorealistic avatars. And the unique thing about this is there's this sense of shared presence in space while we're in here, and in particular, we're in the basically like in a desert
Mm.
environment, and it's very surreal. It's feels a bit dreamlike when we're fully immersed here, and so I've been calling it space time, and
Yeah.
I've been having meetups. You were in one of the meetups with us, and we actually just watched one of the WWDC keynotes just now earlier today with four other people, and we had multiple rooms going across around the world. So we all were tuned in and watching it together. So it was awesome.
Yeah, it sounded like the feedback to that was really excellent. Like the best way to watch a keynote, just feel like you're in the room with these other people.
Yeah, we tried it first with the iPad event. That was about a month ago. That was the first time we tried it, and it worked quite seamlessly. We just share played the video from the live stream in Safari,
Mhm.
and it went off without a hitch. Now, I will say, it's still in beta, so there are some audio glitches, but more or less, it works quite well, and it's really kind of a fun thing to just watch and celebrate, the latest and greatest in technology, but also like have other people with me. Usually I'd just be watching the keynote on my laptop on my own. So making it more of a social experience was quite cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I definitely want to talk a lot about Vision OS and everything happening now and everything with FaceTime and everything with your new company and all that good stuff. I do also want to rewind a little bit to
Sure.
Mind Show, which to me was an absolute revelation. When Video came out, it was one of the first ways I was able to get my wife into virtual reality with me, and we'd make all these silly little videos together, and it was an absolute blast. So, for those who don't know what Mind Show was, can you start there and tell us a
Sure.
little bit about it?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's definitely a fun thing to talk about. So, Mind Show was born out of this question and challenge of how to tell stories in virtual reality, and this was around 2014,
Mhm.
actually when the company started, right just a couple months after VRLA. And one of my co-founders, Johnny Ross, was the original instigator for this question and proposition around storytelling in VR, coming from a background in as a director. And for myself, I was studying film production at USC. And so it was really like this intersection of my two passions for film production and virtual reality and technology, video games. So the way it worked was, at least at first, it was an application for the HTC Vive, and that was the latest and greatest um, VR headset at the time. And we saw that when it was announced, and we're really inspired to create an end-to-end content creation system for virtual reality. And at the time, when it was just an idea, it was a really kind of radical concept to just imagine that as a possibility because VR was so early at that point. And ultimately, we were able to make a prototype, raise some money, we built a team, and we made it a real thing, which was a really just incredible process of learning how to bring our ideas to life, at least in virtual life. So essentially, you could pick an environment, you could select multiple characters and bring the characters and drag and drop them from a hand view into your virtual reality environment, and then embody the characters from a first person perspective, and then record yourself as a character and perform a scene. And you could walk around, you could say things, you could sing, dance. And we had a mocap system that used inverse kinematics to reimagine where your virtual legs would be. And essentially play act multiple characters in a row and record. Then once you're done, record uh, the whole scene with a virtual camera, export that, and then you'd have a video that you could then edit in another tool like Premiere. And so we did this for many years, and we created a bunch of different kinds of shows. Of course, our community created all kinds of shows, and there's a big community on YouTube and on Facebook and Discord. And we also created our own content and with the community, which was quite novel. So leveraging the same VR platform, we were able to uh, create like a community generated content that we the mindset of the company was able to integrate with the community, and that was nominated for Emmy.
Different.
So an Emmy, yes. So hopefully that gives you a decent idea of what that app was like.
Yeah, and it was incredibly fun. It was such a it was so specific to what you can only do in VR, and it was playful, and the characters were like I was a banana sometimes, and some of the characters were cartoons, and there was a lot of personality in each of them. Like I think even someone who wasn't a natural performer could look at one of those characters, and the moment you're looking at a mirror and embodying one of them, it's going to bring something out of you. So I remember like taking some of the plays that my high school or my college theater group had done and just trying to like cast some of those characters and Radishes I had memorized. And then, as you mentioned, Cosmo, it was so fun then to say like, okay, I've got this raw recorded footage, or not footage, but the mocap and the audio, and then kind of figuring out, okay, let's play director and like try to find a where it makes sense to do a wide shot or a close up. The environments were great. The community aspect was wonderful. I remember there was one time when my wife and I had made like a video that was featured, and that felt like a great honor. So yeah, really loved it. And you guys were doing things back then that I feel like still aren't being utilized enough nowadays. Like maybe the closest corollary would be like Flipside XR, but there's not a lot that's like really, I think, doing exactly what my show is doing.
Yeah, Flipside is the closest comparable. I'll admit I haven't played with it in years since I was at Mind Show, but yeah, I mean, it was really ahead of its time. In particular, what I was really excited about was this vision of a fully interactive CG YouTube. And we had a proto version of that where you could create your own interactive cartoon in virtual reality with your own characters and play it back and watch the characters perform and have a story in front of you, and then share that whole thing up to the internet, and then other people could browse and discover and watch what you had made. And so that was just like a taste of where we're going with social. And then we ultimately transitioned to more of a professional animation studio off of that, because we just were not able to get that platform to work from a financial perspective because it was so early in the industry. But I think Flipside is doing some similar stuff to that. But yeah, it was a really fun project, and I appreciate that you mentioned like the play and the fun of it, because it really uniquely brought out people's inner child.
Yeah.
And it tended to do that. We would give people demos, and sometimes we were very surprised, to see like how people would respond in the demo where they got to become characters, and it was always fun to watch how people chose to react to particular lines.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Well, wonderful. And so then going from there, I guess let's kind of bridge from your time at Mind Show to coming up into the Apple ecosystem. And yeah, how did we get to
Sure.
now?
Yeah, so after Mind Show, I took a little bit of a break from VR. Honestly, I think I was a bit burned out, and
Mm.
there was also like this trough of disillusionment
Sure.
around, I want to say like 2018 or so. And after the headsets had become available, and there was in the first couple of years around like 2016, and even before they were officially out, there was just this tremendous hype around VR being like the next big thing, and Meta investing all this money and startups getting all this money, and then that kind of died down. And I also started to grow some interest just in life beyond the screen and life beyond virtual reality. I became a product designer on yet another 3D animation app called MovieBot. That was somewhat of a similar concept to Mindshow, but it was in on mobile, on iOS and Android. And the big breakthrough there was leveraging GPT 3.5 to help you turn your script into, or rather just a sentence, like an idea for a story, not even a script. I would turn your thought essentially, or a word, into a fully created 3D animation that was, optimized for like TikTok. So we had a bunch of teenagers creating content effortlessly, and they would never have been able to do that. So it's a similar concept around like, democratizing storytelling in 3D animation. And then from there, um, let's see. Yeah, so the vision, I was and meanwhile, for years and years throughout that, I've been closely paying attention to all things Apple, um, and had been following the rumors around, Apple making a VR device. I was thinking that it was going to come out in like 2016 or something. It was like as we all like thought or had hoped. Turns out, we all waited like 10 years, more or less, or I did at least. And I've been a fanboy and just like lover of an interest of all things Apple. And they're definitely far from perfect, and they make all kinds of weird decisions sometimes, and things that are not as favorable. But overall, like I really appreciate what Apple does from a design and hardware software perspective. Um, oh, you just disappeared.
Yeah, you're such a
Okay, cool. Um, so, yeah, so I've been, honestly, like very obsessed with this device to the point where before it was announced a year ago, roughly this time last year, I was having dreams of using the headset, an Apple VR headset before it was announced. I was like so imagining whatever this would be.
you're so relatable.
Oh, very much. No, in percent, and even beyond that, when I was working on Mind Show, and I was imagining what Mind Show could be. This was back, I want to say 2017, 2018. I, in my notebook, I was imagining using, some future version of Mind Show for precisely what we're doing now with spatial personas. So having spatial FaceTimes and using avatars to communicate with each other as is the future of communication. I knew that was going to be a thing. Granted, the particular details of how Apple chose to manifest that are different, but overall, yeah, I've been excited for spatial personas going back, 6 or so years ago. So all that to say, I've been quite obsessed with what the Vision Pro is and what it represents in terms of our ability to communicate and create and evolve the VR AR industries. So it finally came out, and it certainly was a big investment. But ultimately, I realized that um, acquiring it was the ticket to everything that I wanted to do in my future career. Um, so here we are, and we get to experience that.
Yeah. How often are you using the device?
Certainly at least once a day. Today, I think I've been using it the most, absolutely, because it's been WWDC and we're testing out VisionOS 2. Um, Typically, I use it mostly for spatial personas and also just trying out apps that developers in our community use. So those would be my two main use cases for it. I am bullish on other categories, but certainly spatial personas are the most sticky for me.
Yeah. Now, have you thought about the potential of something like this in also like a playful Mindshow-esque capacity if this were to become like an SDK or an API that developers?
Of course, yeah, I would love that. I mean, for one, I would love to see an easier way to record and stream these conversations. So right now we're recording the audio separately with Audition and your phone and hoping that that all works. So we'll find out later. Um, and in particular, you know, to be able to create podcasts through this, I think is powerful. So that's precisely what we're doing now. I don't know who else is doing that, to be honest. I'm glad that you reached out because I'd like to do something like this on my own as well, or with you, or whoever else wants to do it. But certainly, more spatial persona podcasts, and I think that the promise of that is really quite interesting because we'll be able to have guests in here, like in our space, and maybe they won't talk, or maybe they will talk, but it's just a new, could be a new way to host podcasts.
Yeah, it could be like a what do they call it? Like the YMCA, sessions that they do in New York where you've got two people sitting on stage and a bunch of people in the audience watching. So we can do that, except people can be watching from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and this is not quite that, but Sandwich Vision from Adam Isagor, I don't know if you saw their announcement, but they just released their new app Theater, which is not quite like what we're describing yet. I mean, it might evolve into that perhaps, but they have a virtual theater environment that will be streaming a 3D uh, presentation from the talk show with I think it's Adam Gruber or what's his name? John Gruber. John
Cool.
Gruber. Yeah. Um,
What's it called? I'll actually, since we're recording, I'll
Sure.
try to pull it up right.
Yeah, it's called Theater if you just search for that.
Well, whoops, I'm clicking on the wrong app. So no, it's
So they're streaming that at 10 p.m. Pacific.
oh cool.
So that's coming up like pretty soon.
Yeah, I'll definitely give that a try. Theater.
Yes.
Let's see if it comes up. Walk-in theater, theater ears.
Scroll down a little bit.
Scroll down. Cinemax theater, the future of cinema.
Yeah.
Is that one it?
I think so.
Future of cinema. Okay. Oh, this one is watch YouTube in your theater.
Maybe, yeah. It's from Sandwich Vision.
Yeah.
What will be the developer?
Yeah. Did you see any other announcements of other apps today or even recently that get you excited?
So I recently tried a couple apps that are interesting. One would be Trippy Mesh,
Trippy Mesh added visual.
which projects a texture onto your environment using the LiDAR scanner. And when you walk around your room or apartment and map everything out, it's really quite a trippy experience where you're somewhere in between realities. You're both in your apartment, but also in some other virtual dreamlike space. And that is an example of one of the things that I was hoping for, VisionOS to, provide that kind of experience. It's not really useful for much, but it's a cool, visual experience. And then Aquazen was uh, a virtual aquarium.
Oh, cool.
That is pretty neat, getting to see some little fishies in your space. Thought that was cool.
I'll give that a try.
Yeah, I'm very attracted to anything that takes advantage of what the Vision Pro is uniquely capable of in the truest sense of spatial computing. Oh, and then also maybe last week, we had a FaceTime meetup with the developer from Polycan.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Poly's is amazing.
Yeah, I think Nick McCardo is his name, and he was showing us, he was share playing 3D models for a group of 5 of us. And that is just another profound experience where, on top of the spatial persona way of communicating, which already is cool, getting to share play 3D models and have that be synchronized between us is really compelling because it makes good on that term, that phrase of spatial computing.
Exactly.
So your persona disappeared.
Yeah, I was trying to do a spatial share. Oh, no, not working. Did I lose you?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I opened up Poly.
Open it. Yeah.
And I wanted to share a model with you.
Sure.
Maybe I did it wrong. Do you see it? It says to viewing. Share Polycam sharing options. I might have just wrong.
I just opened it, but now it's gone.
Let's see. I did something wrong. Maybe. Yeah, I gotta go back to the call. I'm here in the call. Open. That's our shared capture. Okay. I see you again, although you're frozen. That's interesting. You still hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're back to looking normal. But no, I totally failed at trying to bring up Polycam in the middle of our discussion of Poly.
Yeah, that's all right.
Let me try it.
You can try it one more time if you want.
Yeah, sure. To viewing. All right. Oh. No. Nope. Weird. Oh, wait.
Nicely.
Okay, now I think we're in here. Although it's interesting, we don't have the immersive environment anymore.
Yes, that is true. So now you see my computer in my room. Oh, wow. Yeah. So this is really cool. I mean, hopefully I'm still recording and all
Yeah.
works.
You know what's funny is I don't actually see the model in your hand.
Oh, you don't see it?
Yeah. Where is it?
Do you see it on the floor now?
Nope. I totally.
Well,
Where is it? Oh, here it is. Now, okay, now it looks like it's right in front of you. So there we go. Yeah, now this is what we want. So yeah, so I've got the whole tower in the middle. They were at Tower of London. This looks great. Yeah, this looks fantastic.
it is truly mind blowing. Really, like the level of detail and clarity that I'm seeing in this is, obviously the trees are kind of weird and things look weird, but
Yeah, we're looking at
it's a miniature world
yeah,
right here.
yeah. We could be urban planners right now deciding, the future of a city.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah. So yeah, Polycam's a great example. I think they're doing great work. Have you played much with Beautiful Things?
Yes, of course. I was just testing the new updates to Quick Look,
Oh,
which make that an even better experience because there's finally support for surface snapping.
cool.
Yeah. So you can attach models to your floor and other surfaces.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Let's see. I'm trying to go back to seeing each other properly.
Yeah, I have to exit.
Oh, you have to exit
Share
share cam. There we go. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Now it says you're busy. Now it says you're immersed. Now it says you're busy.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see if I come back. Close that. And then there you are. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a mess. I will
Oh,
like just the overall
you're.
it works quite well. But yeah, go ahead.
I see you in Bora Bora now.
Huh.
I think that might be a bug because I think we're supposed to be in the same environment.
Oh, we definitely are, but I don't have
Yeah, yeah.
you do somehow
Yeah.
annoyed about that.
When I tried to do Bora Bora at the beginning of our call, it said, it gave me a big X and said the other person must have it downloaded. And I thought, okay, so yeah, I understand it wants us to be in the same environment. But now looks like we're on a beautiful beach together, even though that's not what you see.
Well, I see sand, so
Yeah.
it's sort of similar.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. Just a different kind of bio. But okay, Cosmo, I'm sure we have a lot of people who are thinking like, all right, well, I didn't watch the keynote today or WWDC or any of that. What were the highlights? How did we feel about it? I'll let you start.
Sure. Yeah, this was a very long keynote. This is it was 2 hours. By the end of it, I had to pee real bad. And but overall, yeah, I mean, it was a juicy keynote with not only VisionOS 2, but iOS 18, and of course, all Mac, iPad, etc. And Apple Intelligence was like their one more thing that we all knew was coming. So, where do you want to start? VisionOS or Apple Intelligence or
Yeah.
iOS?
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting that they opened with Vision OS. It felt like that would be something that would either be at the very end or like, buried kind of in the middle. But to make that the first thing they talk about, why do you think they did that?
Yeah, well, VisionOS is their up and coming platform. So I suppose they put it first because they want to prioritize that in developers' minds and get them inspired to create. It is an interesting situation where, you know, uh, all that said, there really wasn't like any juicy, major, exciting things in VisionOS 2. There are some nice improvements and quality of life things that are different, but nothing that I would say would necessarily like change a developer's mind if they were on the fence for developing a spatial computing app. There's really not much in there that I'm aware of at the moment. There could be some things that are deeper details that I haven't yet explored, but um, my expectations were lowered. I think a couple days ago after Mark Gurman put out his information about like just don't expect much in terms of VisionOS 2. I made a whole video about my wish list for VisionOS 2 and it was just things that like I was desiring, like the surface snapping was one thing that came true, and better make the Vision Pro more demoable, so that it also came true. But some of the bigger things around like my desire for recordings, spatial persona conversations were not a thing yet. I don't think.
Yeah. What were some of the, we'll just mention some of the highlights that we remember. So what were a couple that stood out?
Sure. Well, For sure, I think the thing that will have the biggest day-to-day impact on Vision Pro users will be the new home button and control center gestures. So, uh, I don't know if I want to do it now on the call
Geez, right breaks.
because it might end it. But I mean, you can see here, when you open your palm and you look at your hand, there's a new circular button, and when you tap your fingers, it goes home, and you turn your hand over, and you can see the time, and if you hold down, you can change the volume, which is a nice surprise.
Mhm.
And beyond that, there's some minor tweaks to how Control Center looks, and there's an update to. Actually, let's stay on that because you
Yeah.
actually had an interesting point on that new gesture. So you want to.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking the more I played with the gesture, the more I got really excited about it. And I realized the reason was because this is part of the cognitive ladder that a lot of people talked about, where there were complaints when the Vision first came out, where people are saying, like, Apple's not taking advantage of all the things you can do in VR.
Right.
They're keeping things so simple. It's just, pinch gestures and dragging, and they're not, playing with like the 50 other gestures you could do with your hands and all that. And this is the first time we're seeing like a proper multi-step gesture where it's like, put your hand in a certain position, press a thing, rotate. It's like all these steps to make a thing happen. So like, for example, if I want to change the volume right now, it's like I put my hand up like this, then I turn it over, then I do a pinch, then I drag. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot more things in that vein where it's trusting people to become acclimated and gaining a certain amount of muscle memory to do more complicated gestures where it's going to be very difficult for someone who's never done something like this before to jump right into doing all those things. But it becomes kind of this power user option, or it just becomes a foundation that everyone starts to use.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point, and I completely agree with you. VisionOS 1 is just setting the fundamentals with screens, volumes, and immersive spaces and, control center and all that. But this is the start, I think, for more complex interactions. And I love gestures. I think it actually works quite well. It'll take a little bit of getting used to, but already it's quite intuitive. It's funny that they went with a circular shape instead of the if you remember, it's kind of like a squared circle or just a square with rounded corners back in the original home button days. That would have been kind of nice if they went with that icon just as a reference to that. But I get that they're maybe evolving that. I also think about the on the iOS side of things when I went to the iPhone 10 and they had that multitasking gesture where you swipe up from the bottom and you can hold a little bit and you can close apps. That was not present on the first iPhone. So it took many generations to get to that. And similarly with the swipe down from the right corner, right? There's a lot of like maybe gestures that would seem advanced by the original iPhone standards that are just like very intuitive to us today. And so for sure, I'm looking forward to more examples like that and more features in future.
Yeah, and I'm probably a great example with someone who uh I'm an example of what happens when someone comes to this stuff late because I, had a Macintosh in 1995. I never had a MacBook. I never had an iPhone until pretty recently. And so I came into this ecosystem, from Android, from Windows, having those things in the back of my mind. But there were a lot of things like the swipe down from the top right on an iPhone that like I just didn't know. And I didn't really watch any like getting started videos. So I was kind of assuming things would be very similar to Android, and in some ways they are because there's been a lot of borrowing back and forth. But I'm finally starting to kind of catch up to multi-tap and multi-touch and all the different things that you can do on a MacBook, on an iPhone that really fully take advantage of that OS. And yes, I think we're finally starting to see that with Vision OS as well.
Absolutely. What about Apple Intelligence missing from Vision OS for now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I do have the, Chat GPT app here, which is great and fine. And I use that all the time. I mean, the Apple Intelligence announcement in general was a little bit not unexpected. It wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was either going to be like, we've got this huge partnership with OpenAI, and all of Apple Intelligence is built on like a forked version of that maintains your privacy and follows all the Apple standards. Or it was going to be we have rebuilt Siri from the ground up, and we have this entirely different approach now to how we think about AI and how it works with you day to day. And it was in some ways kind of a strange mishmash of those things. Like, yes, I'm glad that you can, ask a question about the weather and then contextually say, okay, please put something in my calendar, at that location at this time. And Siri's going to kind of follow along with that train of thought. So the way that that all works within the Apple ecosystem is great. But then it was kind of weird to also be like, oh yeah, and we also have APIs that connect to all this. So if you want to use ChatGPT or something else, that'll work too.
Yeah, no, that part in the keynote where they brought up ChatGPT and of course the prospect of other AI models was a bit strange. I'm curious to see how it'll work in practice.
Yeah.
Overall, I do support the integration of that, and I think it'll be great because I use ChatGPT all the time. And currently, I'm using and enjoying the Mac app that's built in. So, further integrating useful AI features, I love. But in terms of the messaging, it just was is interesting how Apple Intelligence was all about privacy and context, and they're like hyping up their own stuff that's processed on device, which is great. And then it's like, and oh yeah, and if you also want to do Chat GPT, like you can do Chat GPT too. It's up kind of shoehorned in there, and I mean, from what we're hearing of the rumors, like this deal with OpenAI was closed like probably a couple weeks ago, quite recently. So definitely a boon for OpenAI and Sam Altman and his company. But yeah, I'm curious to see what it'll be like in practice. But overall, like I think it's a welcome improvement.
Yeah. I was definitely expecting that we'd see more integration across the Apple ecosystem in terms of, VisionOS talking more directly to, iPads and iPhones and
Hmm.
Apple TV and all that. And we saw a little bit of that indirectly because of the fact that it's now going to be very easy to share like your iPhone screen on your MacBook. And then if you're mirroring your MacBook in VisionOS, you see it that way. But yeah, were you expecting anything in that?
Well, they did announce that Vision Pro will be an AirPlay receiver.
Right.
So I've yet to try that. I don't know how that will work, but it sounds like you can then you should be able to mirror your iPhone and iPad directly to Vision Pro,
Correct.
which you can already do with an app called Bezel through the
Mhm.
third-party app. So it's not that radical. And honestly, I don't know how useful that is. But you're right in that it is a strange thing, in terms of a big part of the value of Vision Pro and Vision OS is the connection to the Apple ecosystem, having your photos, messages, etc., all of that just available, which is great. Yet when I look at my phone physically and I pick that up, it's somewhat readable through the pass through cameras, but not exactly. And it's not a pleasant experience.
Mhm.
I can share my Mac display. So there's some improvements to that with wide and ultra wide displays on Vision OS 2. But you're right in that I think there is definitely an awesome opportunity to more further tie iOS and iPadOS as essentially like peripherals into VisionOS. So, for example, both of those mobile devices have ARKit. They have all the sensors that you would need to virtually recreate their position orientation in a virtual environment. So using that and the touchscreens, you could essentially have that be a control surface for Vision Pro in addition to the other, hand-based gestures. So I don't know if Apple will do that necessarily, but theoretically that is possible. And you could, and I think it would be great because like the weird thing about most virtual reality experiences is the lack of like physical haptic sensation. The Quest has that with their controllers, and I love the haptic feedback in that, but Vision Pro is completely missing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you've played anything like, Vacation Simulator, Job Simulator, Demio, these apps that are both on the Vision Pro and in VR, but it's tough to make a case that any of them are better in the Vision Pro, and I think the lack of haptic feedback is a big part of that.
Yeah, I've yet to experiment with that in Vision Pro. Of course, I've tried, was it Job Simulator back in the day on the Vive? That was like the OG Vive kind of, yes. And just, super fun game. The Vision Pro is really not optimized for games as much as they might want to promote that.
Yeah.
And I think primarily that's because of the controller issue would be the main thing. It's certainly powerful. It's capable. Has a freaking M2 in it.
Yeah.
So it's not for lack of power, but more I think a input challenge.
One of my favorite things to do if I'm just relaxing, and I'll literally do this in the middle of a working session. I'll have my MacBook Pro up. I'll be working, 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 and I'll be like, I need a little bit of break. My break sometimes isn't taking off the headset; it's leaving the headset on, pulling up the Steam Link app, which is just the iPad version of the app, grabbing my Steam Deck, and then like playing something on my Steam Deck for a while with a 3D movie playing in the background. It's really good. If you like,
That's some advanced stuff right there.
it's not that complicated to set. Yeah.
So you're Steam decking and having a 3D movie at the same time?
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
What, anything you found particularly enjoyable?
In terms of a movie or a game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing a lot of Hades 2 lately, and it's beautiful artwork in there. So just to have that blown up really big is nice. I've enjoyed doing Death Stranding on the MacBook and having that blown up well. That's not through Steam Link, that's just the MacBook directly. And then, I'm really enjoying going through a back catalog of 3D movies, even movies that I didn't really care about that much. Like I've never cared about the Transformers franchise, but it's been so fascinating to now treat 3D movies as this medium that I can study properly now.
Yeah, no, an excellent point because previously, if we think about it, 3D movies were a thing that we would need to go to a theater to experience, or back in the day, like around 2010, when the TV companies were trying to make 3D TVs a thing.
Yeah.
They put on these glasses, and it was okay. It was like it was 3D, but it wasn't like that exciting to be honest, and that's why it died. But now we have this renaissance of 3D movies and spatial video, both at the consumer level with the iPhone 15 Pro and the Vision Pro itself, as well as the professional level with Apple TV Plus and Apple Immersive Video. And they did have some announcements with WWDC around new cameras from Blackmagic and a
Mhm.
lens from Canon
Yeah.
and a workflow with Final Cut Pro. So it's good to see that, and let's maybe touch on that. Like, what do you see? What do you think the significance is of that in terms of this medium of immersive video?
Oh, I think it's incredible. Yeah, because it takes spatial video from being this, I don't want to call it a gimmick because I think it's amazing and it looks so wonderful to see memories that way. But it takes it from that casual consumer kind of thing into a more professional medium where, we might see an Oscar winning short film that is using spatial video in really compelling ways. And I'm excited for that to be possible.
Yeah, I think it's the beginning of something quite large, actually, and I can say that about a lot of Vision OS things, like spatial personas being another example. But just focusing on the immersive video thing, it's funny or somewhat amusing to me, like the way that technology evolves. Right, like we had 360 video around, with John initially.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe there were others before them, but that was the one that I tried for the first time in VR. And Scott Brook, shout out to him, he gave me a demo of that like in 2014 before they had even announced it with Johnny, and it was so exciting and mind blowing. The concept like you can be in the thing, you can be in the video and look around wherever you want, and 360 video ultimately was mostly a novelty. Like it didn't really go anywhere. To me, it was never as compelling as like the fully CG experiences.
Yeah.
And now you have Apple Immersive Video and their push in a very expensive professional way,
Mhm.
making the highest end 180-degree video, and it makes a lot of sense. Like we maybe skip forward a couple of years, like let's just say that becomes popular if it does.
Yeah.
Why that would be the case? Because it's easier for filmmakers to tell stories like that because they don't really have to change a whole lot. Now, it is different. It is different than just traditional filmmaking,
Mhm.
but it's not as radically different as 360 video, where you literally have to get out of the room entirely to just even get a shot off, right? So with 180, you just put the camera down, you stand behind the camera, and it's going to capture whatever it sees in front of you. And you just put a bunch of cameras around, and then you can stitch them all together to really make you feel like you're there.
Yeah, I've been a fan of 180 above 360 since the start of both being an option. I had a Mirage Solo camera, which came with the Mirage Solo Google Lenovo Dev Kit as well. And I was using it all the time. And I loved the fact that I could still be behind the camera and didn't have to get out of the shot. And with 360 video, I always felt a sense of FOMO, like what's happening behind me. And the 180 sense is great because it's still immersive, but you don't feel like you need to constantly be spinning.
Right, exactly. You get the best of both worlds. You get an immersive sense, but you don't have this frustration about like wondering what's happening behind you. And fundamentally, this is what Johnny, my co-founder with Mindshun VRLA, had told me about, like the control and flow of information, right? The director, when you're shooting a movie, through the frame, the camera frame, right? Where you put the camera and what is within that frame, you control the flow of information. And so it's a lot harder with 360 video when there is no frame. So that was actually one of the initial problems that we set out to solve back in the day before it became Mindshow, was this thing called visionary focus. And originally the company was called Visionary VR, so it's like kind of cool that the Vision Pro is now a thing, and they
Yeah.
selected that name. So it's like a similar selection of terms, but yeah, I think we're seeing like some of the earliest ideas of the various ways in which Apple is evolving different genres of society.
Mhm.
Communication through spatial personas, entertainment and sports through spatial video and spatial media capture. Um, I would say education through. I mean, Apple doesn't have necessarily any educational videos, but things like Jigspace and
Sure.
perhaps Beautiful Things and other apps like that. So that's why I'm bullish on it. Like it's clearly far from complete. It's expensive. It's heavy. It's not ideal in many ways, but there's enough interesting things there that as us developers and Apple iterates over time, it will continue to become that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a little bit of Unreal Engine stuff. First of all, we said Unreal Engine. You said hard. Have you played with Unreal Engine? What's your history there?
I have very limited experience with Unreal Engine. I have used it. I haven't used it in a while. Every time that I've tried to open it in the past however many years, I think I just because I hadn't opened it in a long time, would take a long time to open, like a long, long time.
Yeah.
So like every time I mustered up some energy to like go and see, just try and learn it a little bit,
Yeah.
it just took a long time to open. So I'm a huge fan of Unreal Engine. I think it's beautiful. I think in particular its uses for virtual production and like high end cinematic using CG is compelling. It's enthralling. I remember the demo for Unreal Engine 5 when that first came out. That initial trailer just really just was it got me so excited for the future of technology, computers, real time computer graphics, and it only continues to get better. And especially when we think about all that in something like the Vision Pro, we're entering a whole new world for what's possible for not only video games, but anything that requires some kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you tried What If yet?
I have. I actually happened to have just put out a review of that earlier today.
I'll take a
So
look at that.
very, very relevant. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that it's amazing that the first Unreal Engine app in VisionOS, and it's beautiful. I think,
Mhm.
storytelling aside, which I can kind of take or leave. I'm not that invested in the alternate versions of what can happen in the Marvel story, so I don't feel like the stakes are very high. But from a technical perspective, looks incredible, animated beautifully. I love the way it plays with going back and forth between 3D video and kind of a fully immersed state and a half immersed state. And that to me also just laid a foundation of so many potentially new, exciting things to do in this platform.
Absolutely. Completely agree with all that. And yet, my ultimate impression was I was disappointed, and I feel that it was a big missed opportunity. Um, Completely agree. The art was beautiful. I love the balance between mixed reality and fully immersive spaces. My biggest issues with it were I was really bored actually
Sure.
for
Yeah.
for most of it. It was like almost an hour long. It
Yeah.
could have been about a third as long and been a better experience for that. Um, Half of the experience was simply just watching flat video clips, and I was like, "Why are you making me watch a video?" Like, I guess I came in with an expectation that I would be mostly seeing like fully CG characters and CG worlds, but then they were what it felt like they were forcing me like to watch these flat videos that like were not skippable.
Yeah.
So that was very bothersome, and in particular, it felt like filler. It felt actually kind of disrespectful in terms of like the expectations. Like this is the Disney IP, Marvel IP on Vision Pro. It's like the intersection of two awesome things, and then it's like here you're gonna watch like 30 minutes of video that you could just watch on your computer.
Sure.
Okay, fine. The storytelling was disjointed, and I had absolutely no stakes. I really didn't care much for the characters or what was happening in the story at all. Um, so you know, if this was meant to be like a showcase of like something you would want to like go and tell your friends about, to like, oh, you need to go try What If and do a demo of that, like this was far from it.
Mhm. I do like though that in the menu you can go to specific chapters. So if there's a particular moment you wanted to show someone, you don't have to tell them to go through the whole
Sure.
experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of like wanting to give someone a tight, crisp 5 minute demo a la Encounter Dinosaurs, like sure, it's not that.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're definitely like, I in some ways I feel a little bad about being harsh, and I'm just giving my, my honest,
Yeah.
candid thoughts. And I feel I don't necessarily feel bad, but I know what it takes to make something like that, and it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money. I mean, it probably cost them millions of dollars to produce that whole thing, and it's not an easy feat, especially if they're using Unreal Engine. There's like Vision Pro on hard mode.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, saying what I liked about it, like I loved having the characters in my space and having the presence and like the shadows on the floor and the eye contact that they were able to have and like the portals and going back and forth between fully immersive and mixed reality. And yeah, and then the other thing that bothered me was there was like a lot of gestures and like video game like mechanics, even though this is not a video game. It's just like, okay, we're going to make a Marvel thing on Vision Pro. And so, of course, we're going to use gestures and hand tracking because that's what it can do. And that's what's cool. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. But they're so half baked.
Mhm.
And I think it actually would have been stronger if they just didn't have that at all. And it
Mm.
literally was just watching a CG story unfold in front of you, and you're just, an observer.
Yeah.
That would have felt like more of a polished experience because they went like not even halfway with their game like mechanics. They went like a quarter of the way in terms of like how fun they were, how useful they were. They certainly were cool. Like the art, the intricate design of the mandala floating above the hand, like super cool. But in terms of the impact and relationship that I, as the viewer, the player had in the story, it was very on rails, and it was like, oh, they like kind of gave you a choice at the end of like choosing left or right,
Mhm.
but I didn't even remember like what the choices meant. Like it just felt kind of meaningless.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, like I didn't realize till after I made a choice, like, oh, one of the options was change the past, and one of them was don't change the past and continue to the future. And the correct option was don't change the past, continue on. But the other option was a lot more fun, and you get a Deadpool, miss minutes thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately, I am a big believer in the concept of what they're trying to do, like this merger of video games and movies. And my perspective comes from having built Mindshow and
Yeah.
built this platform for community user generated immersive interactive stories. And it's not quite the same thing as What If. It wasn't trying to be this high end production value kind of thing. Um, but I've definitely been thinking about, what the intersection of video games and movies could look like for quite a while. And um, I think that there's still quite a big promise there, right? Like in terms of, coming back to Apple immersive video, the power of that, feeling present in some other world, you get that in a live action sense. I think you could definitely do something like that. What If is a good example of the presence with CG characters, the CG version of that, but the interactive aspects of it were, pretty lacking.
Yeah, I hear you. Did you have some sense, either going into it or coming out of it, of what you feel would have been some improvements for the experience?
Yeah, I think was is what I just mentioned earlier. Like they could have honestly just removed all the
Yeah.
hand tracking stuff. Because what I love, so it's if they had a really flowy, compelling story with CG characters in my space and going back and forth between my space and an immersive space, and have that be more of like watching an episode of TV as opposed to it felt like watching a tech demo where it was like do this and then do this and then do this, like in terms of the chapters of like like doing the gestures and like gaining the power stones. It felt kind of disjointed in the way that that was broken up in that sense. But when you're watching a TV show, the best TV shows are very captivating, and they draw you in. And, after 15, 30, 60 minutes, you don't know how much time has passed.
Mhm.
I felt the opposite in
Yeah.
this experience. I was like begging, like waiting for this to be over.
Mhm. As that sounds. Yeah, I hear you. And then, to think of like Mind Show and some of the examples there, could you imagine a scenario where rather than being this kind of nobody, like you are kind of playing yourself and you're randomly selected to be the hero of the multiverse? Do you think it would be more compelling to actually take on the role of some of the characters from the Marvel universe, or how do you think your role should be in this?
That's a deep and profound question, and I think that there's many answers to that. I think certainly it could be a lot of fun to actually play more of a character like, I don't know, Iron Man, the Hulk, or just, throwing out a couple of examples there. I mean, in this story and What If in particular, it was like, what do they call us? The traveler or something, or
Something.
some vague thing that like, I didn't, yeah, I didn't take on any character or sense of identity. And I think that was like another big question or challenge with this piece was the sense of identity that I had as I was like an observer, but I was also a player, and I was like part of the story, but not really. Like I was also just watching, and that's a big challenge when you try to combine something that is traditionally interactive, like a video game, and something that's traditionally passive, like a movie.
Yeah.
So I don't quite know what the perfect answer is, but what I'm excited is in the exploration, right? That this will open up, hopefully, for future iterations.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know you have to go get going soon, but I do want to mention also some of the announcements from today that could affect Unreal Engine developers. First up, I want to make sure everyone knows that when I updated to VisionOS 2.0, all my Unreal Engine apps broke. So just be aware of that. Any Unreal devs out there who want to have things keep working. Hopefully, when I download the newest version of Xcode and recompile my apps, everything will magically work again. That remains to be seen. Something very exciting potentially for Unreal Engine developers was the announcement that Metal will start to allow for mixed reality. So maybe we don't need to rebuild the equivalent of polyspatial in order to access the camera data. So that would be really wonderful, and maybe we'll start to see more mixed reality through Unreal Engine. This applies to everyone, but there's an enterprise offering coming or now available that will allow you to access the camera data, which is something we've been wanting for a while. So some of that stuff I think potentially could be really useful for the Unreal Engine devs out there, as well as just the ecosystem at large.
Awesome. I guess before we go for concluding now, because I do need to use my new
It's
gesture.
fun. We can actually,
Check the time.
time.
Yeah, instead of awkwardly look up like,
Right.
arrow. Yeah, so I'm doing a couple things in this space that listeners would probably appreciate.
Tell us all about it.
Um, One is spacetime.directory, which is a way for anyone with a Vision Pro to come and hang out with spatial personas like we did today at WWDC. We have different events and meetups throughout the week and weekend. Second is a newsletter that I am starting called Magic Beans Newsletter, which is a reference to the shape of the Vision Pro icon and, of course, the magic beans from the fairy tale.
Jack and Bean stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You can go to magicbeansnewsletter.com to learn more about that. And we talk all about AI, spatial computing, and robotics. And the thesis and main thought behind that is realizing that the convergence of all these new emerging technologies is evolving humanity into something new. What we call that, I don't quite know, and how soon uh, we get there is also uncertain. But we are shifting into some new kind of humanity, for better or worse. And getting to explore that on the newsletter is something that I'm excited about. And finally, I'm also supporting VisionOS developers through a business called VisionOS Dev Partners.com. And I'm offering various services such as App Store optimization, usability testing, and product strategy for developers that are looking to take their VisionOS apps to the next level. And finally, you can reach me on Twitter or X at Cosmo Scharf, CosmoScharf.
Yeah, fantastic. I was going to ask you one by one each of those things, and you managed to get them added in detail. So thanks so much, Cosmo. This was such a wonderful conversation. We've already gotten to chat a few times, but I got to learn more things about you and just get to recap a very intense day of new. Yeah, I can't believe that this is day one of WWDC, and there's still more announcements to come. You probably saw also that there's like a whole VisionOS track. There's all sorts of talks coming out. Anything that caught your eye there that you're excited to look more into?
I'm sure there's plenty of exciting things. I have not had a
There's a lot.
chance to even look at what's available. So it's been a juicy day and it'll be a juicy week.
Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to let you go and I'm going to have a couple more announcements. And thanks for joining us on the Unofficial Unreal Engine podcast.
Thank you for having me. What a fun time.
Cheers. Oh, actually, you know what? It just occurred to me that no one's going to see my face if you go. But you know what I'll do is I'll pull up, just so people aren't looking at nothing, I'll pull up the persona.
I'm recording you.
Yeah, I know you're recording me, but I was going to let you leave. And if you
Oh, okay.
leave, then no one will be able to use your video to look at me. What I'll do here is I'll pull up the persona area of the home menu, and then I could just be looking at myself in the mirror. Final question though: how do you feel about the new personas in VisionOS 2.0 compared to how they were?
Oh, that I mean, they seem better. I don't quite have a fully direct comparison, but I mean, I trust that they did improve them. I mean, it seems my what I can observe is like it seems that the movement is a bit more fluid, like a little bit of a higher refresh rate.
Yeah,
So,
they did give us 90 FPS with the hands, which I'm so happy about.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Ah, nice. I like that.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I aged up a little bit, like it added some wrinkles or something, but I don't know. It feels better. Oh, the best thing is when I close my mouth now, it actually closes. Before, in all the previous iterations of personas, if I close my mouth, it would still like show my teeth a little. So that's
Ah,
better.
nice. Yeah, you look good.
Cool. Thanks. You look good. All right. Cool. So I'll see you around New
All
York.
right.
And till next time. Cheers, Gus.
Sounds good. Bye.
All right, so we'll let Cosmo head out, and just a few more announcements before we say goodbye for the day. First one is on Wednesday in New York City. We're doing a very cool Unreal Engine live theater show over at NYU's The Lard. The Lard. Nope, the Lard would be something different. This is NYU's The Yard in partnership with W Lab, and this is going to be live theater in front of an LED wall. It's a very cool little experiment that we, just had a table reading for a week ago, and then we're going to be off to the races putting on a live show. You can physically come to NYU's The Yard and watch it like black box theater with an LED wall in the background. Or you can go to agilens.com/RSVP and you can register to actually see the show live there over a YouTube live stream. We'll also be adding like a VR mode for, other ways to experience this in the future. This is the first of hopefully many experiments. We have three incredible actors who are going to be capturing their body movement live using Captury. So we have live avatar data that will be inside the Unreal Engine model. So, you're physically there, you see actual actors with an Unreal Engine background. You're not there, you see a live stream with their avatars being fully mocap markerlessly, because that's how the Capture system works, and inside the Unreal Engine environment. So then when we add that next level, like Christmas Carol, where you actually can be in VR at the same time, it'll be this incredible remote immersive theater that works at a physical in-person level as well as a virtual level in all those different capacities. So please check that out again, agilens.com/RSVP. And then right after that's over, I will, of course, will be headed to Unreal Fest Europe over in Prague. I'm leaving for Prague on Saturday. I'll also be headed to Helsinki. I'm giving two talks at Unreal Fest Europe. Again, one about metahumans, one about things I wish I learned sooner in Unreal. And thanks a lot to Epic Games for taking care of my flight and hotel accommodations and those wonderful things. Please do reach out if you'll be either in Helsinki or Prague. And of course, if you've ever been, reach out, let me know recommendations of what to do there. What else? We'll have Jacob back soon. Jacob's been busy. And I think that is it. Thanks everyone for the wonderful feedback from last week's episode with Real Illusion. That was a really fun interview and great to have Scott or Alan Scott on as a guest host to take care of that and ask really good questions. And we will see you all soon. I will be back with Jacob hopefully soon, recapping Unreal Fest and talking about what's coming next. And also, nope, never mind. I was going to say, don't forget to submit to Unreal Fest. That deadline has passed. So if you didn't do that yet, too bad. It's over. I know the last thing I wanted to say. Our very first app, Agile Lens's very first public app, made in Unreal Engine, coming to the MetaQuest store. It is called Body of Mine. This is a collaboration with Cameron Christopoulos, who I've known for a few years. This is an incredible piece that takes you through the experience of body dysphoria and basically helps you understand what it's like to be trans and be in a body that does not feel like your own body. It's a wonderful piece that originally was created in Unreal Engine, required desktop VR and a very heavy, powerful computer, and had 5 trackers. So there's a lot of calibration to do a full body experience here. We've been working with Cameron now since earlier this year to port the experience to Quest Pro, Quest 3, maybe the Quest 3S if that comes out relatively soon. And we're using the Movement SDK to try to give some sense of full body tracking inside. And we've added a number of other features that were not there in the award winning touring festival experience. So, really cool. It's going to be the very first LGBTQ plus app on the Quest store right in time for Pride Week and Pride Month. And I hope you all check it out and let us all know what you think. Okay, that's it for announcements. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your whatever. And see you next time. Goodbye from my persona, which looks kind of funky in this 2D mode, by the way, because my hands look kind of flat instead of three-dimensional, but they look like they're on a different plane of existence. Okay, that's it. Goodbye. Goodbye.